Welcome to this month's Ask EMBN. It's where we get to answer all your questions about everything e-bikes. We've got a hell of a show coming up, loads of questions, and we're taking a bit of an in-depth look at hybrid e-bikes. Right, first question coming in from Nicholas Duckney. He's saying, is it legal to carry two kids on a bike in the UK? I can imagine getting stopped by overzealous members of the fuzz, even if it is. Well, I think it depends on the type of bike you're going to be riding. Obviously, if you're going to be riding a cargo bike like the Turn GSD, that is actually designed to be ridden with two children on there. You can put two child seats side by side, or you can even use a bench seat along it. But I don't think on a standard e-mountain bike it's going to be a problem either. If you're using proper seats, front and rear, it's obviously going to handle a bit different with all that weight on board, but it's not actually going to be illegal. What is illegal is to carry a child on a bike seat that isn't designed to be ridden as one. You know, you get those guys that kind of like zip tie a normal bike seat on the top tube. If you do get stopped by the police, you will actually get, a stern telling off for running that seat. That is something you definitely don't want to do. Mark Collingwood has been in touch and he's saying, great show, gents. Cheers, Mark. What model of the EVOC bag was it that fits the Levo battery? Now, I think you're on about the backpack that Steve used for the Mont Blanc ride. That was the EVOC Trail Ride FE. And that has a nice zip out section on the bottom of that pack, which allows the backpack to extend. Therefore, you can fit that massive battery, and it is huge on the Levo. But a little tip, if you do want to shorten that length down of the battery, you can actually remove the plastic clip on the front of it, kind of like the flap with a 6mm Allen key bolt. That undoes by the side from a 4mm Allen key. You can actually remove that flap, and therefore it's going to shorten that battery down. So if you are struggling on space, maybe try that. Right, John Davis has been in touch with us and he's been asking, can I ride a hybrid e-bike off-road? I mostly commute but fancy off-road trails at the weekend. What's your thoughts on hybrid e-bikes? Well, John, that's a good question, and here's a little bit more in depth all about hybrid e-bikes. Well, the hybrid e-bike, that tends to have a little bit more bias towards road kind of riding. It can handle off-road situations, but it's more kind of like 80% road and 20% off-road. And the thing that makes a difference as well is all about the geometry of the bike. We're talking more comfort than aggressive style riding. We're talking swept back handlebars, big high stem, just about being comfortable for more road style riding. And then of course there's the components. Now usually these bikes run 700C wheels and tyres, which means it's exactly the same size as a 29er. Also, you're going to find the gearing on these bikes is more suited towards road use as well, so you're going to be pushing quite a high speed, again used for that tarmac use rather than off-road. You certainly won't be climbing any mountains with that gearing setup. And also you're going to have nice protection on there. Usually those bikes come with front and rear mudguards too. Then of course there is the motors. Now these don't tend to be as powerful as the full-blown mountain bike versions. You're going to get a tamed down motor. Usually you're going to be about 20 Nm different in torque, but some of them do still run that big powerful unit, such as a Specialized bike that still pumps out 90 Nm of torque. Then there's a battery. Now a lot of these will come with smaller batteries, usually around 417 watt hours, but again some of the bigger, more expensive bikes will have that full power, maybe a 500 watt hour battery in there, but they're all going to differ. And of course the motors, well, the cheaper bikes can come with that rear hub drive, which of course has all that weight. It isn't quite as efficient as that mid-drive motor, but that mid-drive motor will come at a bit more expense, but you're going to have a nice integrated battery into that as well. But cost-wise, well, this Vado, like Steve was using for his Welsh adventure, that comes in at £2,400. And that has, you know, some impressive spec on it. It's got that mid-drive motor already, what I mentioned, 90 Nm of torque, 500 watt hour battery, and of course it's got that Bluetooth connectivity to it, so you can manage all those settings with it in the app. But if you fancy something cheaper, I had a look online and we've got the Carrera Crossfire. Now this comes in at £1,400. It's a rear hub drive motor. It's got a 417 watt hour battery. It's got 75mm travel fork up front. And it's quite basic componentry, but it will definitely do that job of riding on the road, and there's slight off-road adventures too. So hybrid e-bikes are definitely worth looking at if it's something that you want to do. A little bit of road, maybe a little bit of off-road at the weekends. David Walking, he's saying, I can't understand the cost of an SL. It's got a smaller motor, smaller battery, therefore should be cheaper. Are the chain, forks and saddle e-bike specific? I understand it to be a stump jumper with a small off-the-shelf mid-mount motor installed, so hardly any R&D going into the project. Our specialised pulling the wool over our eyes. Well, I think we need to break it down and take a look at the facts. So you've got the base model Levo, that's coming in at £4,250. Then you've got the base model SL, that's coming in at £4,999 as well. So £750 difference in there. And I think what you need to take into account is that the specialised Levo SL, it's had a lot of technology going into it. You mentioned about the motor being smaller, therefore it should be cheaper. But what you will find with those smaller components and more lightweight components, there's actually a lot more tech and a lot more R&D going into it to make it that much smaller and that much more lighter. So therefore it is going to be a more expensive. Another thing you need to think about is the standard base model stump jumper. That comes in at £3,400, and that hasn't even got a motor, no battery, or no like software or tech to go with it. So there's definitely going to be those differences in price, but it's all going to be reflective in things like the components on the bike, the wheels, the brakes, the drivetrain. That's all going to come into that price. And the base model SL, it's only £750, and as I mentioned, that's going to make up that difference in all those components. CL Goodrich has been in touch. He says, I have a high bike with a Yamaha PWX motor. Do you know if anybody sells a range extender battery for it? Well, I've had a quick look online and I can't actually see a range extender for that bike. Your best bet is going to be either finding a second-hand battery or maybe a new one from Yamaha and go riding with that in your backpack. Therefore, you can have another 500 watt-hour battery, and that's meaning you're going to get huge range and do some massive rides. Right, Frederick Lind has been in touch. He's saying, what is an e-bike seat and what is better with them? Well, guys like Ergon and SQ Labs have been developing the e-bike seat, and I think when they first come out, a lot of people are like, what makes it different? Well, the biggest difference is going to be how much float is in that saddle. When you're out on your e-bike, you spend a lot more time actually sat in the saddle, and you've got other features on there, a lot more padded sort of layers on there as well, so it's a lot more comfortable. And you've got that nice raised arch on the back, meaning that when you climb in, it pushes your weight forward and stops that front wheel lifting up, and also gives you something to push against and stops you kind of like sliding off the back when the going gets steep. So there are some massive differences on those e-bike saddles. Okay, James Hutchinson, he's saying, really considering getting an e-mountain bike this year. Nice one. He says, going to demo one after the lockdown period, but my question is about transportation. I have a roof carrier for my pedal mountain bike that clamps onto the down tube near the bottom bracket. Obviously that won't work with an e-mountain bike due to the motor and battery location. I'm not changing my roof system or entire car to suit, and I don't want to go rear or turbo mounted as I don't have one, and the bike's components get killed from the road muck and exhaust. What roof carriers are available for e-mountain bikes? Well, it's a pretty grey area at the moment. Most roof racks will only guarantee bikes up to about 20 kilos. So with an e-bike, you're usually 20, or maybe if you've got an SL, you're going to be lighter than that. But I mean, usually the base sort of level is about 17 to about 24 kilos, so you might scrape into that weight limit. If you remove your battery and your front wheel from your bike, you might be at 20 kilos, but that is the limit. So it's something that I wouldn't personally feel comfortable with myself. I think if you're going to be transporting an e-bike with that car, maybe look into removing the wheels and putting it into the boot of your car. That way you know it's going to be secure. But there are a few other racks on the market. I've had a quick look around. You've got the Sea Sucker. Now this is like a suction cup mount that will fit any car, so it sucks to the roof, then you put your bike on top. That is guaranteed to 20.5 kilos, so again you're going to be right on that border, and it is quite expensive. Then Inno racks, now these have got quite a good write-up. That's guaranteed to 23 kilos, so you should be pretty good with them. So have a look for Inno racks. And again, Thule, they do loads of different racks again to suit all different styles of bikes, but they are going to be coming in at 20 kilos. So I think if you're looking at roof racks, then maybe Inno racks could be the one for you. Jordi Diego, he says, I have a Commensal Metapower and I want to use it with a home trainer these days in lockdown. Am I going to damage the frame or the motor running it off for so long? No, not at all. I don't think there's any problem with running your e-bike with it turned off on a turbo trainer. The only thing I can think of is maybe you want to put a slick rear tyre on there. So that will cut down on the noise on the trainer. It's also going to stop the tyre wear. But I think for the price of a tyre, I'd be quite tempted to have a look around on the second-hand market and try and find a road bike or something like that you can slot in, and that could be your go-to turbo trainer bike rather than burning out your e-bike on the turbo trainer. Next one is coming in from Alan Burr, and he's saying, could you try putting a Moto Trials tyre on your e-bike if you could get a rim or tyre to fit it? Well, straight away the Moto Trials tyre, that's 18 inches, so it's going to bring down that back end of the bike. It's going to drop down the geometry. You're going to drop the bottom bracket. You're going to slacken the head angle. It's going to cause a load of bad things. I think at the minute with e-bike tyres and the tech that's going on with them, we're in a pretty good place. And don't forget, you've already got e-bike fat bikes as well, so they're running some big fat tyres on there. So I don't think there's going to be any advantages, just a load of disadvantages from fitting that on. Right, last question coming in from Suicide Betty. How much harder is it to ride your e-mountain bike with a motor off in comparison to a normal mountain bike? Well, it's going to be way harder than a standard mountain bike. You've got the weight of the bike, you've got the suspension on there, the drag of the tyres, you've got the weight of the motor, then the battery. It's going to make that bike really, really heavy. And I think the Bosch Generation 3 motor was notorious for that drag when you had it off or going above that 60 mph limit. So you're definitely going to get a hell of a workout on that. If you're going to be riding a Bosch motor with it turned off, you want the Generation 4. That is a really smooth motor and a lot different to the Generation 3. So there you go, that's hopefully all your questions answered for this month. Don't forget, if you want to get involved, hashtag Ask EMBN, drop your question down in the comments box below and we'll get back to you hopefully on next week's show. Talking to the comments, if you guys have got any answers you want to put in the comments below about all the questions that I've been asked today, get involved. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to EMBN and make sure you find us on social media too. Cheers guys.